Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to spend some time with me on the video today. Always grateful to have you guys around here. We're going to be talking about buying a used bass boat today. If you guys are in the market to buy a used bass boat and you don't want to get buyer's remorse, I've got some good tips and advice because I've learned the hard way, guys. I bought several used bass boats before, came out good on some of them, not so good on others. A lot of my friends are the same way. So I'm going to give you guys some good tips and advice on buying a used bass boat so you can really get the most out of your money and get something you're really happy with. Also, guys, a quick reminder before we get started, Tackle Warehouse has got a shipment of 1,000 of my new Blaukat throwback jigs in stock. I was going to show you my favorite wintertime setup, guys. This is my favorite setup on the Blaukat throwback jig to use in the wintertime. Solid brown with the green pumpkin, just a solid brown living rubber skirt. All the throwback jigs have the living rubber, a lot more action in that cold water, with a green pumpkin Zoom Super Chunk Junior on it. And I've got it trimmed back a lot. I've cut about half of the skirt off of the jig here, so it's a nice little edible tidbit, guys. Look at that little thing. It doesn't look edible there. But anyway, this is the jig I like to fish in the wintertime, and like from December through like February. Throw this thing around any bluffy type banks, steep rock banks, a good way to catch them. Okay, what do you need to look for here, guys, to not get screwed on buying a used bass boat? There's quite a few things here. Now, first of all, it's like, you have to decide the budgets you want, because obviously, if you buy a used bass boat, the later models are going to have a lot less problems with them, and the older boats that you get you're going to get into more issues with that. So everybody has their budget, and I don't care if you have a budget of $5,000 for a bass boat or a budget of $50,000 for a used bass boat. You sort of have to look for these same things on all of it. So one of the things we'll do, we'll sort of rock you guys through heads and tails here on what to look for on a boat. The first thing, one of the most important things to do is the condition of the motor. Now, one of the first checks that you can do on a motor is you've got to do a compression check on it. The compression check is going to tell you a lot about the state and the health of the motor. It's worth paying a little bit to get that compression check done. It tells you if everything's firing on all cylinders. They can also sort of do a check through on the motor as far as hoses and that type of deal. And if you can get some type of accurate gauge on the hours of the motor, that can be pretty good as well. Now, I'm not too scared about, guys, if you have a motor that has a lot of hours on it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got problems, that you're going to have potential problems, because if a motor is well maintained and serviced, it can last a long time. So don't let hours scare you away. Be more concerned about that compression check. And another thing that you always want to do is make sure that you always spin the propeller and look to see if the prop shaft is bent at all, because a lot of people, they hit stuff with their props even idling, and there can be just a slight wobble in that prop that's barely visible. So take a lot of times to spin that prop 15 or 20 times to make sure that that prop shaft is just perfectly straight, because even if you have just a tiny slight bend in it, that can definitely cause some problems with your seals later on. So definitely, check that out. Trailer's another thing before we get to the rest of the boat. Trailer's a big thing. One of the things that I would highly suggest as far as on a trailer, look at the condition of the axles, look at the condition of the tires, if they're wearing evenly. I definitely prefer a tandem axle trailer for safety reasons, because not only they're safer to tow, you don't get them to fishtailing, it keeps you from fishtailing, but if you do happen to get a flat tire, you can keep rolling. You can still drive on a flat tire with one flat tire and a tandem axle. Next thing you want to do is closely inspect the hull. If it's an aluminum boat, inspect the holes, make sure there's no cracks in the welds. On a fiberglass boat, pay close attention to the side rub rails to see if there's any stress cracks. A lot of times if you have a lake that has a lot of timber or something in it, a lot of people hit that timber from the side, and it'll cause stress cracks in the side of the boat. One of the things that you don't have to really be that concerned about, but a lot of people are, is scratches on the hull. Now, back when, I've had, most of my life, I've had what's called a demo boat or a memo bill boat, where I get to use the boat for free for a year, that I'm responsible for selling it, and I have to give the money back to the boat manufacturer. And one of the first things that guys would do that were interested in buying my boat is they'd crawl underneath the boat and look for scratches on the hull, and that'd be a make or break deal for a lot of them. Guys, scratches on the bottom of the hull are not that big of a deal unless you have a scratch on the bottom of your boat that is actually into the fiberglass, where you can actually see the fiberglass, filaments, don't worry about it, because it's going to get scratched up anyway. If you fish, pulling your boat up on the bank, if you fish in shallow water, backing up in shallow water, you're going to get the bottom of your boat scratched up. Do not let a boat that's scratched up on the bottom, be a deal breaker for you, because it's really a non-issue in terms of how the boat performs and how long it's going to last. It's more of a cosmetic thing that you do not ever see. Most of the time you never ever see what's under the boat there. So just make sure there's no, deep, scratches where that fiberglass is showing. Pay close attention also, guys, when you get in the boat, for like loose, rivets, loose bolts, that type of stuff. That can tell you a lot about how an angler has treated their boat, as far as in rough water. Another thing with it, find out where that boat has been fishing at. If you're fishing, if the boat has been mainly on just a little 20,000 acre lake its whole life, it's going to be a big difference than if you fish Sam Rayburn Lake or Toledo Bend or some of the Great Lakes where you're in that big water all the time. Electronics also. Electronics are, a lot of people replace them when they get a used boat, but make sure your electronics are functional, make sure they work well. Trolling motor also, trolling motor has a potential to be a big cost for you in terms of, if you have a trolling motor that's worn out, that can add considerable cost to the boat, because trolling motors are not cheap. So make sure that the brackets are in good place, that the brackets aren't wobbly, that you don't have a lot of play in the shaft of it. That can be something right there that can really be, well, the trolling motor and the electronics, that can be a thing that will really give you some leverage as far as negotiating the price, because if you have to replace electronics in a trolling motor, that's a significant cost. So sometimes you can get a better deal if you have a trolling motor and electronics that really are not up to par with that. So that's the main thing, guys. The main thing is just pay close attention to the stress cracks and the compression check on the motor. Also spend extra time examining the transom. You do not want any stress cracks around that transom whatsoever. Now, transoms have really been beefed up and improved over the past 15 or 20 years. Back, 20, 25 years ago, we used to have wooden transoms, and they would crack a lot, and that'd be a big problem. So, definitely want to examine the transom area there. But that's just a few things off the top of my head. Used bass boats are a really good way to go, because you can get a big deal. You can get a really good boat at a huge savings, because if you buy a new bass boat, guys, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's going to depreciate in value tremendously. But the difference is when you're talking about getting into a bass boat, sometimes buying a new bass boat is a little bit more attractive because of the financing options. It's more affordable. But then again, if you purchase a used bass boat, you might get a better value, just depending on your own situation. And also, guys, I'll link my Branson West Marine linked in the description. If you guys are looking for a new or used bass boat, they got a bunch of them down there. Super great people to work with. I'll link that in the description. Just tell them you saw the video, and they might be able to help you guys out with a pretty good deal there. So anyway, just a few thoughts on buying a used boat. Hope it helps out, and we'll talk later.